Land values is the overarching theme of my work, and I use it to investigate, as the name suggests, different aspects of how we as a society value land. But to start with, I decided to take a personal perspective on how I personally value land and how I've come to think the way I do about land. So to do that, I decided to, on my first major project, to go back to the place where I grew up, visiting all the different places that I played out. I had a walk around the estate as I did so, and then took photographs of those places. Each one I felt had a significance to me and a story to tell of my childhood. But then once I'd done that, I decided I want to compare that with a new place I just moved to as an adult now, looking at trying to find very similar places in terms of maybe their composition, to be able to draw a connection to them, but then similarly actually trying to pose a question of getting a sense that potentially children don't play out in the same way as I did as a child, or at least as how I remember doing so. I certainly don't want to make a conclusion about that in this work, but I want to open those questions up and ask the audience, do you agree or not about how you hopefully be able to reflect on how they engage with land as children, how their own children engage with land today, and what impact that may have if children don't engage in the same way, what impact that may have on the value for land going into the future and how we may want to conserve it. The second project that I wanted to widen this investigation is a new developing project on valuing land for its environmental contribution. It takes an estate, an old hospital estate that's potentially due for redevelopment over the next 5 years or so. But within that estate there are a lot of very aesthetically attractive urban trees that certainly create an atmosphere for that place, contribute in an instrumental way to the value of the overall site. But I wanted to question at this early stage what will happen as the plans for the site grow towards redevelopment. Will our value for it be transformed from a fairly functional aspect of how these trees contribute to our enjoyment of the site, to a more intrinsic value for and personal value for what that represents in terms of us as a community and a society? And will these trees be used in the future towards the protection of this site, which is certainly the way I anticipate things to go, but it'll be interesting to see as things develop. The third and final project just at the moment on this investigation is looking at how we value land through transformation and conservation. And I took a site that was once a very industrial site on the east coast, northeast coast, that had lots of heavy industry, and the site was there to dump coal before it was transported around the UK and particularly into London, and was very, very much a neglected piece of the coastline. But today all those industries have gone, and it's interesting to note that the local authority are now trying to generate income around this site as a pleasant place to visit, with footpaths and wildlife meadows, sandy beaches, and are trying to use a combination of their own interaction and conservation measures, but also allowing nature itself to rediscover itself and transform itself back into its natural state. And it's interesting to see how both of those elements are helping to combine this site and transform it into a new place where the value for that land has changed. Hopefully I will continue with this investigation by adding more and more projects, so please come back and visit at some future date.